What's up YouTube, Thrift Hunter here, going to do a short little video about acid testing because it seems like there's quite a few people who need a little bit more knowledge about how you test pieces, since it's a little bit tricky when you start getting into some of the advanced testing. I've showed some basic testing before, and there's a lot of great videos out there on YouTube about how to test certain things, but I'm going to show you some tips and some things that I picked up about how to test certain things like gold filled or fake silver or plated silver or low carat gold, things like that. So I have just a few examples here, and we'll start out with the real good one. This is a case back for a pocket watch. And I would say I see a lot of pocket watches that people think are gold, because when they test them, they test as gold. However, they're just gold filled. And part of the reason why is because pocket watches are usually about twice as thick of gold filled than maybe your average gold filled. So these actually have quite a bit of gold in them still, but not as much as like a solid gold piece. This one happens to be marked 25 years, so we know for sure that it is gold filled. However, some have some tricky marks, and I want to show you guys how you would test something like this, and kind of the incorrect way to test this versus the correct way to test this. So what a normal person might do is they might take this on this kind of this flat side here and give it a good long rub, like to create a line, right? So let's do that. So someone might do something like that, and we can take our 14 karat acid, which I have somewhere over here. This is a JSP 14 karat acid, and we'll go ahead and test that with 14 karat, and we'll see how that's coming up on the camera for you guys. Hopefully you can see that it actually holds, and I kind of spilled too much acid on there. Let me drain some of that up, but wonder how well that's showing for you guys. Hopefully pretty well as I try and get it into the light. But see, that's holding 14 karat acid, like really holding it, like not even close, right? Totally holding it. Why is that? It's because the surface of this piece is completely 14 karat gold. It is actually solid, you know, gold layer that is on top of there. And you can leave this on here all day. You can leave this here. It's still gonna hold. It's never gonna go away. So it's gonna test like it's 14 karat gold. So let me clean that up, and make sure you clean your stones fairly well in between testing, as to not contaminate the results of the next one. So let me show you how you would actually want to test this to get an idea. So what I'm gonna do is going to pick a very specific spot. Let's go with this little raised part here. This is partially dented, so there's a little spot right here. So I'm going to pick this specific point on the piece, and I'm going to rub really hard, and I'm going to keep my line a lot tighter than before, where we were going like this, fairly light, and giving it a lot of surface area. Now we're going to pick a very specific point, and we're going to push very hard. And we're going to rub it for a long time, and you can see that nice gold mark, and we're going to look at the piece where we rubbed it. So you see this high point here where it's shiny. When you look at it, make sure we've got it down enough. We might need to go even a little bit harder, but probably not. You see how that's leaving a nice gold mark on there? That should be good enough. We'll see. But now I've got this high spot, just that one spot, right there. So I'm not actually going to put acid on these lines. Well, I will to show you, but they should hold. I would imagine. They may fizzle. Okay, so that one you can see actually started to react a little bit, but it's still kind of holding. So what I want to do is I want to take this specific, just this little high spot, and I want to put that into the acid. And we're going to let it sit there for just a minute, and then we're going to take a look at that spot. So can you guys start to see it fizzling and turning green all around there where that acid has touched? You see that green color starting to come off now? And it'll just keep eating away that gold. And how our high spot has now lost its shininess because there's been a reaction going on there where it's starting to eat away at that spot. And I'll go ahead and wipe this on my paper towel, and you can actually see, sorry, I'll get it to focus, even though this towel is dirty, but you can actually see green on the paper towel. So it's a lot more tricky to test gold filled than you would think it is, as this area kind of gets dirty. Let me wipe off the plate. So that's what you want to do for gold filled, and we'll test some more so I can show you some more. Alright, so let's try another piece. This one we can do, which I've already tested before, but this is a ring that was stamped. It's stamped 14 karat in the ring band there, and it doesn't look quite like it now, but when I originally bought this one, it was a little bit cleaner. It did look very close to 14 karat gold. And it has this kind of this cage style here, and this is what they would, you guys will remember this, I actually posted this in one of my videos and on my Instagram, I believe. But this is like a princess ring, one of those Thai princess rings they call these, cluster rings, whatever. A lot of these are fake, I've found out since I bought this. I bought this probably about a year ago, and I've only kept it as like an example. But almost all of these that look like this are fake, and you can see where I tested it before. I've actually dipped it in the acid, but let me see if I can find a good spot. Let's take like a flat side here, and I'm gonna do that bad testing strategy, how a lot of people test things. A lot of people will test things like that, very long strokes and very kind of swirly and inconsistent, and not condensing the material into one spot. So let's go ahead and test that with our 14 karat acid. And this is also holding, but it is turning a little bit brown. Not sure how well it's gonna show, how well this is coming up on camera for you guys, but it is still there. The line is still there, but it is a little bit brown in color. It's kind of a weird, it's not completely dissolving, but it's definitely changed color a little bit. So now we're going to do that same thing, but how you should correctly test something like this is we'll take that shiny side, and we're going to push really hard, and we're going to keep the line really tight like this. This is how you want a really strong deep line that's fairly small. You really don't have to go across the entire stone. Let's go ahead and test that mark, which will probably be fine. It does dissolve a little bit, again, kind of the same, a little bit of a browning to it, like almost like it's a low carat gold. But here's our high spot right there. You can see that. That's where we've rubbed down quite a bit. That's the part that we want to dip into the acid here. And you can see right away we're getting a reaction off of those areas that have touched the acid, and around the whole ring really. But there you can see, you know, very clearly that that's not gold. But you would say, oh well, you know, maybe it's just the one you got or something like that. Here's another one that actually has a nice opal in it. It's a really nice opal. It's actually not a high dollar opal. It is mostly blue-green, and with the white base, it's really not that great. It has some decent qualities, but again, we've got this caged back, and I always get a little bit worried about these simple shanks with these caged backs, and then this rope. It's all very simple and kind of crude, which you don't usually see on fine jewelry that often. But this has a real stone, which you're seeing a lot of this stuff come out of India now. And so this is marked 14K, and it looks like 14K, and it's got a real stone in it. And we'll go ahead and give this one a real light scratch. And hopefully these lines are showing up for you guys on the camera. So this one kind of does the same thing as the other one. And I'm really hoping you guys can see that. I'll have to review this and see. But it's still holding there, and you can actually see the other, or at least I can see the other line. They're both holding. They're both there, but it's also again gone to a little bit of a brownish color, like almost like you're got some 10 karat or something on there, but it's not dissolving. It's not completely dissolving at all. But let's go ahead and find our high spot there on the shank of this ring, and let's dip it directly into the acid. And again, we're getting this kind of a reaction. So we know that this is not gold. So it's very, very tricky, because they heavily plate them. If you test it just lightly and not correctly, you will get a positive gold result, and you will think that you have some gold there. But let's go ahead and do something even maybe a little bit more complicated. Let's test something like this. I have this here and this here, which is, they're both like a Chinese jade, some kind of a jade piece with gold. You see it with lapis, with a bunch of other stuff, and this is something that will be marked 14 karat. This one's not marked actually, but this one is marked 14 karat. And you should be able to start picking up on the different colors. This has a very high carat looking color, where this has a very low carat looking color, and they're actually both low carat. So let me show you how something like this would test. So let me give this a good mark without my light falling off. So hopefully we can see these two. Let's do both of them. So the color of both the lines actually looks pretty similar here. And let's go ahead and test them with 14 karat. Okay, you can see that one's not holding, that this one is holding. For this test. So this one is holding up for 14 karat acid. So let's test it with the little spot. See if we get any reaction, which we don't. So this one actually tests good for 14 karat, right? You can see the other one which I thought this one would be low carat, but I guess it is 14. I can't really remember which ones. I have some different ones that I'm trying to pull out for examples. But that one is a very, very clear 14 karat. And I'm not sure how well you guys can see the other line here, but it's still holding. It's just not as bright. It's like, again, going towards that brownish color, whereas this is holding very, very bright. And that's what you want to see when you're testing 14 karat gold, is not only should it hold, so you can't get too concerned. I see a lot of people get concerned about, is it holding? Like, a lot of different materials will hold. Even some white gold, like other white materials, will hold a 14 karat acid line, but it actually should look like a bright, bunch of gold underneath there. So let's go ahead and test this this earring again. I'm gonna test this leprechaun guy, which actually looks like a higher carat gold, but I'm pretty sure it's not. Let's see how that tests. Okay. See that one? How it's also holding the line, but it's still not quite the same as this 14 karat one here. And this is 14 karat acid as well, but it actually kind of is separating the line a little bit. And this is all from the same piece here. So this piece has two different parts that are testing differently. So you have to be careful about the construction of certain pieces. I had a piece recently, it was a bracelet that the center piece was 14 karat gold, but the sides were not gold. So you also have to be careful about different parts of the piece being completely gold. So this we can definitely know it's gold. This we're not sure, it could be a low carat gold. But even this kind of tests like a little bit lower. So this is probably in that 12 to 13 just under carated range. But it's very difficult to determine the exact carat of this without having it x-rayed. And that's why sometimes these things can get difficult for inexperienced people. They might not know, right? If you just tested one part of this, you might sell it as 14 karat gold, when this bottom section doesn't hold for 14 karat gold, and maybe this top section doesn't hold, but only this section holds. But you're trying to get a 14 karat price for the entire thing. So that is some things to also consider, is testing each individual part of a piece, especially when it's a lot of money. When we're talking like thousands of dollars, you really want to make sure every single piece is gold and that it's the right carat. Because especially on eBay, people will try and pull all kinds of tricks on you, and you'll get some weird stuff coming in. Here's some silver that we can kind of look at. This is some stuff that I've tested before, and I wasn't getting a conclusive silver result. So I want to show you something like this, which I've talked about before, which is like these little 925 China clasps. You see these a lot that are gold plated. They're pretty low quality. We'll just pick a random spot here on here, and we're gonna scratch this really, really hard because we got to get through that plated level there. So here's the mark, which looks really good. So I'm guessing this is gonna be silver. But it does test a little bit weird. Like it feels a little bit weird on the stone. So let's go ahead and test it. Just one drop over the top. And that's the other thing. Okay, so this does test as silver. Right? Very bright. Bright silver. That was the other thing I wanted to talk about, was how people do this. So again, really, really hard pressure and a really, really strong line is what you want, but not really long. But you want to keep it really strong and build up that material. But I see some people that will do this to their acid test, where they rub it all around. And let me show you the difference. Hopefully you can see. I'm pretty sure you can see that on camera. Can you see the difference of how when you rub it around and you use too much acid, the silver flakes disperse, and the single drop gives you a much brighter, stronger, concentrated result, where this kind of gives you a weird result. So if you are, say, testing something that is silver plated, here's a little silver plated piece that I brought out that maybe at first glance it's an antique piece that maybe it looks like silver, and you're like, oh, that's for sure silver. It's an antique piece, it looks like silver, it's got to be silver. And if you take this, and this you can already see from the color that it's not silver, but let's see if I can get any silver result from it. So this one's not going to give me a silver result. Let me see if I can grab something else that would be silver plated. But look at the, again, look at how if you use too much acid and you push the bottle into there, look at how your silver gets dispersed. So hopefully I can show an example, but when you have silver plated and you're doing what I said with the gold filled piece, where if you're taking a real flat portion of the silver plated item and you're scratching it like this on the flat, you're just piling up a bunch of silver, and then if you test it like that, it's gonna give you this weird floaty silver test, which isn't gonna let you know if it is for sure 100% silver or not. So let me see if I can find like a heavily silver plated piece over here that's flat enough to show you what I'm talking about. Let me see what I got. Maybe something like this. Wonder if this will have enough silver on it, or this one might be silver. I don't know if I have any good silver plated pieces. Maybe this might work. I don't know if this is silver or not either, but here's a couple examples of some pieces. We can just test them. Here's one that a lot of people will miss too. This is very heavy and it's marked 925, but this is Electroform over wax. So this also will test as silver because it is silver around it, but it's much heavier and it's filled with resin or like a wax form, and that's what's giving it this heavy weight. So you also have to be careful about getting the wax stuff in your lots, because people will pack that stuff in there and try and make it seem like a heavier weight of the silver. Okay, yeah, so this is silver plated. Here's one that is stamped 925, and doesn't really look like silver anymore because it's all yellowed, but let me see if I can get a fake false positive result from this. Not sure if it's gonna give me one. I don't know if there's I don't have something that's really heavily silver plated that I can show you guys with, because I gave most of it away because I don't want it. But let's see, will this give me any silver result? No, it's not going to. Oh, a little bit. Yeah, it's just going to give me a touch right here. It's giving you a little bit of a hint of that white, but it's really not enough for me to show you. But let's try one of these other pieces, something like this that's not marked sterling, but this may be sterling, I'm not sure. But let's say we just gave this a big. This is how I see people test things. And they'll do this. Alright, so this is silver, but it's still shows my point pretty well, I guess. It's hard to explain it, but I think you guys get the picture. So this is what happens when you kind of rub the tip in and use too much acid and spread it around. You can get this kind of stuff going on, where you're not really 100% sure. Whereas if you just take it and give it good amount of pressure, like a lot, and make sure you're getting down. But look at the size of my mark versus maybe someone who's less experienced might mark something, and then watch the test. So this is from up here, I'm not touching the piece, and I'm just going to let one drop, or two here to let it go on there. And then that's going to give me a much more consistent result in how the silver should be testing. Alright, we'll do one last one with a gold filled piece here. This is marked 1/20th 12 karat, so it shouldn't even hold for 14 karat. But let's go ahead and do that flat. This is how you should not test your gold. It's doing something like this. And you should be able to see the consistency of the line and how this is much more dispersed. But we can hit it with 14 karat acid, which it actually does a fairly good job of holding. It's not totally holding. You can see there. See, if you do it this kind of wispy way, where you're really scratching, when you're doing it that way, you're really getting as much of the gold as possible down onto the stone, and you're really not testing below the plating. And so now we're going to do the same thing again, but instead of giving it this flat spot, this big surface area, we're going to pick just one point on the stone, and we're going to keep it there. We can see that. And we're going to keep pressure, and we're just going to keep it on that one spot. We're going to keep it very tight. And we're really going to get down below that metal. Okay? And we're just going to do the same thing. We're going to do our best to just give it one drop. And you can see right there that it dissolves. Okay? Let me show you. And hopefully these are coming up on camera pretty decently. So I actually tested up here. This is where the second time I marked it was. But you can see here it's also holding just a little bit. But it's still not giving you that bright result that the actual gold, the actual 14 karat gold is going to give you. Neither of these. Even though this result looks like a positive gold result, it's not as strong as it should be. And let's see if I can find where I scratched it. Yeah, right here. So we're going to touch that to the acid. And you can see, here's a good example of just where I scratched it. That's what I dipped in the acid. So the rest of it, unlike the rings where they turned completely green, just the point where I scratched it is turning green and it's discoloring. This should still be shiny, just like how it was originally when we scratched it. But there's a little bit of green right in that spot. And that's what you want to do when you're testing something that you think might be gold but you're not sure, is you scratch it really hard and then you actually dip where you scratched it, that little point, into the acid and look at it and see if that has discolored or turned green or is bubbling or something like that. Some kind of reaction is going on. This, if it was gold, should look completely shiny still. Just like all the material around it should look exactly the same. You should actually be able to see the reflection of that spot where this has gone dark and turned green. And that's what I mean by scratching it and then testing the spot, not just testing the scratch, because as we saw with the scratch, that you can sometimes get a somewhat inconsistent result, especially if you're not familiar with testing. You might consider that gold because you also have a little bit of a bias, of course, because you want it to be gold. You know, who doesn't want to find something really big and find out that it's gold? So you might have a little bias to it and be like, oh, that piece is definitely gold, even though you didn't give it a real proper testing. So I will get in a lot of stuff that I buy that ends up not being solid gold or solid silver because people are getting an inconsistent test result because they're not testing properly. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave me a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.